We'll move to the next speaker, and it's very special for me to introduce the next speaker, Dr. Luke Minion. I know Luke for many years since he was a DVM student, so we go a long way. I was a graduate student then, and we had many stories along the way, working together and so on. And I'm also very honored because he accepted to give this lecture in honor of Dr. Bob Morrison, who was a mentor to many of us. Many of you know Luke, but I will just very briefly say that he grew up in southern Minnesota and began his career with Pipestone Holdings in 2000 after he graduated as a veterinary degree from the University of Minnesota. Luke was an owner at Pipestone Holdings, where he served as CEO from 2004 to 2022. And he served very different roles, from being a veterinarian, production management, business startups. He's got certainly a very good understanding of the swine industry. And now he has a different role. He serves as the chairman and CEO of Wholestone Prestige, also chairman of Yellowstone Cattle, chairman and CEO of Riverstone, and a board member of Pipestone Holdings. Please join me in welcoming Luke, and he will talk about from supply focus to demand obsessed. So we're looking forward to your presentation, Luke.
All right, good morning, everybody. Make sure I know how to work the equipment. Maybe not yet. Oh, it's okay, we're on standby. How many of you knew Bob personally? Bob Morrison. All right. Bob changed my life. Bob's that person that you meet, I hope that you've met one, that challenged you every step along the way to get better. I met him in freshman epidemiology at the University of Minnesota in the year 1996. So by show of hands, how many of you were alive in 1996? Yeah, thank you. We're a pretty old crowd. But Bob changed my life. Bob was a DVM, a PhD, and an MBA. And I remember seeing that behind his name thinking, my goodness, what do all those letters stand for? And what it really turned out to me is Bob was just a smart guy. And he thought about a lot of things. And so what I want to do today as I go through this title is to refer back to Bob all throughout, and also my colleagues. You know, I praise God for the blessings in my life, also for the adversity in my life. But in my career, I've been blessed with some unbelievable colleagues. At Pipestone, at Wholestone Prestige, many of you are here today. The credit of anything that we talk about here today that gets put on me should be put on those people. Praise to my Lord and Savior. Credit to the people that I've had a chance to work with. And one of them is this guy. So this is Bob. I used to go up to the third floor where the swine group was, and I'd walk up to his office almost every day after class because Bob was running Pig Champ at that time, and that was kind of a job that I had during vet school. Many of us did during that time. Bob would be sitting in his chair looking out the window, and to me it looked like he was doing nothing. He was looking out the window, sort of doing nothing. And so I'd ask Bob, like, what are you doing? And this is what he said. I'm thinking, Luke, because that's what the university pays me to do. But by all accounts, he was doing nothing. For me, that was kind of remarkable. But now I'm sort of at a different stage in my life, and I really appreciate, I think Bob was thinking. Now, he might have been thinking about his handball match coming up, or any number of other things that he enjoyed doing, but Bob was a thinker. And so throughout the next few minutes that I get to visit with you, I want us to think together in honor of Bob. I just want to think about some things with you. I have been saying to myself, what is thinking? What is it? In my mind, it's just asking myself a question and then trying to figure out the answer. And if you think that way, you want to be surrounded by people that are good thinkers with you, because they're going to ask difficult questions that almost always require difficult answers. So as I go through, this is the outline. I'm just going to have these questions, just 3 or 4 questions. Some of you that know me, I can talk for a long time and say nothing. Hopefully today I don't do that. Hopefully I get you to think as you leave here and we have some conversation in the hallway. So question 1. I'm 25 years into my career. I've spent most of it with what I would perceive most of you do, which is the supply side of this business. Raising pigs, lowering costs, I'm going to talk about it. The last 2.5 to 3 years, I've had a chance to spend time in a packing plant business which the first thing we do every day in a packing plant business is we wake up and we say, how can we stick it to the producer? How many of you agree with that? I actually read that in the first chapter of the book that they handed to me when I showed up at Wholestone Prestige. No, but I've spent some time closer to the consumer now selling pork, and that's, I would say, a little bit of a unique opportunity for me. Okay, so the question is how to create value and capture it. So on the idea of how we create value, as I try to frame this for the rest of my remarks, on the supply side, we really start with this idea that we improve efficiency to lower costs to raise profits. Most of us in this room probably in some simplified way think of that as our job. As producers, as veterinarians and nutritionists, we really think about this is what we do every day. And there's sort of this premise underneath that if we make things cost less, consumers will buy them more. On the other hand, there's the demand side, which I'm saying it really starts with consumers desiring my product more. Consumers want my product more. And actually, we then, wow, this pointer's powerful. I just pointed right in your eyes, didn't I? But consumer desire, they want our products, and we have the power then to raise prices. Okay? And when we raise prices, we raise margins. Most of us, and I would say me, think about where I spent my time in the career I've had so far. I've spent my time here. And I would encourage or urge you to see that you probably have too. When you think about increasing consumer desire for our products, I like to say it this way. How many of you have heard of Lululemon? Raise your hand. Okay, that means you've all paid $100 for a t-shirt. Lululemon thinks about which side of this table? They think about the demand side. They think about raising prices. And they think about it a lot because they know that consumers value more than just price. When you buy a Lululemon product for whatever reason it is, it's probably not price that you looked at. It's probably something else, and they're demand focused. So I want to just use that throughout the moments we have. So now I'm going to go back in time and say in 2000, Monty mentioned I started my career in 2000. This is illustrative. It's not any specific farm, but I think many of you that have been in the industry will probably agree with this. On the supply side, have we created value? That's what I'm trying to get at here. And I think it's pretty obvious. Pigs weaned per sow per year, roughly I would say it was about 20 when I started my career. Now we're at 30 or higher. We've improved by 50%. It's remarkable. And I would say if you read all of these numbers, there's a lot of them, but look at the pounds sold per sow per year, 71% improvement. And if you've been in the industry for 40 years, that chart's even more remarkable. We're amazing on the supply side, I would say. We should be proud as an industry, but there's a but. Remember, we want to improve efficiency, lower costs, and raise profits. This last line is a little bit concerning to me. When I started my career, we'd sit down with a producer and we'd say, how much money do you think we should plan on making in the pig business? And we generally said about $10 a head. You know what? When we sit down today and we talk to a pig producer, Paul, and it's 25 years later, we still say we should make how much per head? $10. The best producers might make 20, the worst producers might make 5, but on the average, we're still making $10 to $15 a head. This is why I kind of talk about this as we're in this loop and we're surviving because we're not raising profits with it. At the same time, we're sort of getting more and more fit. I don't know if Gordon Spronk is here, but that's actually a picture of Gordon on the treadmill. Can you guys recognize Gordon? Some of you are laughing. But this is what I liken it to, a metaphor, if you will. We, as producers, as an industry, we're that person running on the treadmill. We're stronger than ever, we're faster than ever, we're more fit than ever. And every year, we increase the pace on the treadmill and we increase the incline. We're extremely good. We're extremely fit. The competition between producers. But the problem is, we're doing all that in the treadmill stationary. We're still doing all that to capture the same $10 per head. Go to the demand side for just a minute. The U.S. per capita consumption is a measurement of demand. It's not the only measurement, but it's a measurement. What have we achieved in the last 25 years? In my career, honestly, guys, it's about flat. People in the United States were eating about 50 pounds 25 years ago. They're still eating about that same 50 pounds. Profits, again, this idea, I want to increase consumer desire for my products. I want to be able to raise price and raise margins. Well, we're not getting margins raised. And I'm going to just use an ultra simple way of discussing margins by saying when I started in my career, we built the sow farm for $1,200 a space. Today, that same space is about $3,600. Well, you say 200% increase in cost. Yeah, I'm making more pigs, 20 to 30, but still, on a very simple comparative basis, we invest 2 times as much capital in a sow farm as we did 25 years ago. 2 times as much capital. Wean to market barns, it's very similar. And so we're tying up larger and larger amounts of producer capital to generate that same $10, which means on a percentage basis, our returns, my bias, our returns are dramatically less. Okay, so what's this like? Again, if I want a little comparison, it's sort of this idea that we're pushing on a closed door. There's really no increase in demand. And no matter how efficient we get, which we've become incredibly efficient, we're not raising margins. Okay? So, is this a bit of the reality we're in? I call it a supplier's dilemma. And so you'll hear me talk about supplier's dilemma here as we go forward. But we're sort of stuck in a loop. We know we want to get more efficient. We know that efficiency increases supply, but there's really no demand for it. That leads to lower prices. Lower prices, even though we gained efficiency, we end up with this same $10 profit. Well, then we have to invest more money to build the barns and all the things we do, and so we're back with lower returns. And what's happening in the cycle? Round and round we go. Raise your hand if this makes sense. Okay, there's 4 of you, thank you. I believe it's a bit of the dilemma we're in the period of time I've been in the industry. And for 20 plus years, I focused on it and said, yep, and the way to win is to run faster on the treadmill than everybody else. I'm going to be able to run faster. Gordon, remember this is Gordon. Gordon's up there actually asking, does anybody know how to slow this thing down? Is there a down button on this? And if you've ever been on a treadmill that's going at that incline, at that speed, you actually don't know how to stop it. You can't get off without getting what? Hurt. You're going to get hurt. And I would argue some of us, that's how we feel. I can't get off this thing. I can't stop it. I don't know where the down arrow is. And so, why? If this is true, you don't have to believe it is. We can think about it. But if this is true, why are we sort of struggling with no demand? Why are we not able to raise prices? Is it one of 3 things? And there's 50 things. But the 3 things I want to explore just for a few minutes. Is it our own thinking and our paradigms? Is it our competition, or is it non-controllables? Is it things that are outside of our control? Okay, our own thinking. This is maybe going to take a second to have you see, but I hope not. On the supply side, if I woke up every morning at Pipestone or at Swine Vet Center and I was trying to help producers improve efficiency, I would say, you know what, my job is to lower cost of production. I'm just showing a range of possibilities from $10 up to $100. $100 improvement in cost of production. If you were able to achieve that as a consultant, there would be no other consultants in the world. Raise your hand if you understood what I just said. Because it's so what? It's so profoundly large. We work to create cost of production changes of 20 cents a hog, of 50 cents a hog, of $1 and $2, and we celebrate it because it's really, really difficult to do. If you were able to create a $10 cost of production change through some efficiency, that's equal to all our profit. But if you look at it, it's 4 cents a pound on the carcass. It's 4 cents a pound. And then if you take that and you say, what's a consumer spend on pork a year? Well, 50 pounds of pork is what a U.S. consumer consumes every year. If it's a nickel less expensive, a consumer actually only experienced a $2.33 change in what they paid for pork for an entire what? An entire year. So I'm out there in my career for 18 years going to producers saying we got a lower cost of production, it's survival, and it is. And yet to a consumer, how impactful is it to what they spend in a year on pork? It's not even that cup of coffee in your hand. Everybody, raise your hand if you understood what I just said. It's not even the cup of coffee in your hand. We could lower cost of production by $10, and to a consumer, it's only worth $2.33 in a year. That, when I thought that way for the first time, I was kind of discouraged, going, oh my gosh. Now let's go the other way. Can we think the other way? Can I think the other way? I want to be Lululemon. I want to raise price. I want to double my profit by raising price that same 4 cents, that same $10 a head. Okay, it's the same $2.33 as 0.98% retail price change. Because retail price on pork is $4.70 for 2024. That's the USDA data. Average price of pork retail for the United States in 2024 was $4.70. Okay, so what can we do to raise price? This is last point I want to make on this slide. Is it more likely or more probable that we, as an industry, could change cost of production by this or raise what consumers are willing to pay in a year by this? And I strongly believe it's the right-hand side of that screen. I strongly believe it's the right-hand side of that screen. I believe we should work on asking consumers to pay more, $2 up to $25. And I know this sounds crazy, but if they were willing to pay $25 more for the pork that we offer them, it would generate value of $100 a head. Our competition then. So the first thing, are we flat on demand and not able to raise prices just because of how we think about it? Second point, are we flat on demand because our competition is just better? Here's the U.S. consumption data per capita. Green line is chicken. It just goes up every year. In 25 years, it's gone from 80 pounds to over 100 pounds. The United States likes to eat chicken. Beef has gone down and back up a little, and pork is basically flat. So chicken, I don't have enough time to talk about everything I wanted to today, but there's a whole nother talk about what is our competition doing relative to these issues. I'm just going to try to stay brief here on this part, because honestly, I run out of time. So remember, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to raise prices. I'm trying to be demand obsessed. So have our competitors been able to raise price? And the answer is beef has. Beef has profoundly raised price. And here's, again, there's a website called Fred in the Consumer Production or Inflation Index. It's data that's available. It's really a cool website. Fred's what it's called if you want to go look at it. But you can get consumer data back to a very long time ago. And this is right off that website. So this is government data that measures inflation. And look at this. Here's what people, U.S. consumers, this is 2006. Here's what they've been paying for steak per pound, from $5 to $10. So has beef been able to raise prices on its consumers? Absolutely yes. 100% yes. Let's look at a pork chop and a chicken breast. Again, pork chop's green, chicken breast is blue or whatever that color is. Basically, we're range bound with each other. Have we raised price on our consumers? Generally, no. If you adjust that for inflation, the answer is probably very much no. So chicken has been sort of the cheap one, maybe argued as perceived the healthy one, but consumption is going up. Remember the prior graph? If you're holding price and consumption is increasing by 25% and you're in the chicken business, are you winning or losing? You're winning. If you're in the pork business and you're holding flat on price and consumption's flat, are you winning or losing? We're not winning. And then beef. Let's take another look at beef. Beef is able to raise prices. How and why? 3 graphs. Start with the one on the upper left. Upper left is per capita consumption. So you can see they peaked out at like almost 70 pounds. They dipped down in 2014, but now they've come back. People are eating more beef than they were 10 years ago in the United States. And look at the price, this graph. This is average retail price of beef. It's just a line straight up. It's almost as compelling as the line straight up is on chicken's consumption. Beef is adding price every year and consumers pay for it. Chicken is adding consumption every year and consumers pay for it. What's pork adding? Honestly, neither one. Neither one. Okay, why and how did beef do this? This is a grading system that the beef guys kind of are lucky that the carcass has intramuscular fat that correlates to taste, that pigs, we don't have that same thing. We have a lot harder work to do. But in beef, you had a USDA grading system, and bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, from 2000 to 2025, this is prime, quote-unquote the highest marbling, quote-unquote the best taste. This is select, the worst, they've taken it down. And this is choice, which is the intermediate one. What have the beef producers decided to do? What has the beef industry decided to do? They've decided that consumers like taste, they're willing to pay for it, and they increased the cost of production to deliver a consumer desired product. Raise your hand if you understood what I just said. The industry did what? Increased cost of production, which to most of us in the room, that sounds like insanity. They did it. What's that translated into? Why did Bill just show you why beef guys should be buying us dinner? Because right now, if you're a beef guy, this is that same idea. Here's the additional cost a consumer would pay for beef if they're eating 58 pounds a year. So if I like to eat beef, if I eat 58 pounds of beef, I'm paying $188 more a year to do it than I did 10 years ago. Do I really notice that $188 in my life? Probably not, because I'm buying my kids Lululemon shirts. And some of you are the same. The truth is, if I like to have a good taste of beef, I'm going to buy it. I don't like that it's more expensive, but I'm still eating it because I like to eat it. Here's what that creates for the producer or the supply chain of beef, though. Look at this. It creates $2,500 to $3,000 a head. When I was a kid, we had 100 cows. We raised feeder calves. We sold them as 600-pound feeder calves, and they were worth $600. And we made a little bit of money. You know what that same 600-pound feeder calf is worth today? Anybody in here raise beef? Yeah, you don't want to admit it today because it's insane. That same feeder calf is worth $2,400. It doesn't cost $2,400 more. What did the beef guys figure out? That consumers are willing to pay more for their product, and it's transferred directly to the producers. All right, pork demand. Is it our own thinking? Is it our competition, or is it non-controllables? Non-controllables are non-controllable, so I'm not going to talk about them. There's a whole bunch of non-controllables, but I'm not going to talk about them because honestly, we can't what? We can't control them. Our competition, I think, has shown us a couple things, but I personally believe there's room for our thinking to change. Okay, a couple more on this, and then I'm going to move on. So if I believe that demand is where there's a bigger opportunity to create value, which I do, I believe demand is where there's a bigger opportunity to create value. What's the potential? Well, busy table, but I'm going to walk you through it. So again, supply and demand. I want to increase price. I also want to lower cost, but I really would prefer to increase price. So to increase price, if we could do it like beef has, this is, again, a simple table. $4.70 is the current average price. This is the U.S. population. Here's the per capita. That's the retail market value. If we increase price by 2% to $4.79, we would generate $1.6 billion more in retail market value. That's not profit, right? It is value. And in that value, some portion of it's profit, and some portion of that profit is shared amongst the entire chain, from consumers all the way down to producers. It's total value, it's not profit, and it's shared amongst the chain. But very small changes in the percentage of price make very big changes in dollars. If we were able to change price like beef has in the last 10 years, which is a $3 per pound increase, we would generate $359 more in value per head in the pork industry. When you hear that, you actually think I've been drinking and I have no idea what I'm talking about. But guys and gals, it's just math. It's just math. The value of raising price is enormous. It's $43 billion. It's $1 and $2 and $3 and $4 billion. Have we thought about it enough? My argument is no. Okay, let's take the path of chicken, though, and say we're not going to raise price. We're just going to get our consumers to eat more. 1 pound change in consumption is worth $1.6 billion. Turns out we're just taking the same numbers times each other. This price, this population, and these changes. So very big value for increased consumption or for increased price in the billions. And if we had ability to get consumers to eat like they eat chicken, it's a $20 billion retail market value. So, okay, that's fine, Luke. I get it. Maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. But who gets to capture the value? Who captures the value in the chain? So I have 2 slides on this, and then I'll move on. If we increase supply and sort of go back to that Gordon on the treadmill, okay, and we're in this supplier's dilemma. If we increase supply all the time, who captures most of that value? I sort of submit to you that it's retailers and consumers. And I think this is the market that we've experienced. Consumers get the value of low prices, which that's what competition should create. I'm 100% for competition creating low prices for consumers. Retailers are the last step, though, and so when this whole portion of the chain is constantly borderline oversupplying, it puts retailers in a great position to find out how much of that margin they can keep. Raise your hand if you understood how much of that margin they can keep. And so in an increased supply, sort of supplier's dilemma, this is where the majority of the value is captured. The argument I have is the best profits for producers are when we have things like PED. Many of you remember 2014. If you don't, it's the first time we really had PED in the United States, and it wiped out a whole bunch of production. And what happened to price? Went like this. And if you were one of the lucky producers that didn't get PED, it was one of the most profitable years you might have ever had, and maybe will ever have. When you're in an oversupplied situation kind of all the time, you kind of hope that someone else has a supply problem and you don't. Raise your hand, people. I know that's what you do. It's what we all are left with because we haven't figured out how to raise prices. And so the big profitability years are when there's supply disruptions. Okay, I want to submit to you that there's a better math. When you raise demand, everybody in the chain can win. When consumers want more of your product, you can raise prices and you can raise supply. Everybody has a chance to win in a raising demand equation. And the idea then is those that own more of the chain are probably going to capture more of the value because they invested to own more of the chain. I believe everyone can win in raising demand. I believe those that own more of the chain will capture more of it. And I believe that competition truly creates everyone winning. So we think about competition as lowering cost of production. Lululemon thinks about competition as creating the shirt that you'll pay $120 for. Crazy different. I want to be more like Lululemon. Okay, question one. Where do I think there's the opportunity to create and capture the most value? I'm completely convinced. I'm demand obsessed in my title. It's in the demand side. All right, so that's fine. How do we do it? If it was that easy, we should all have done this. So what are two specific examples? So one thing that drives me crazy, I get an opportunity to talk like this, and I talk way up in the clouds, and then there's no specific examples. I want to give two specific examples I think we face right now. And I want to go back to Bob. Bob was an analytical person, and sometimes I used to make fun of Bob. I'm like, Bob, you've analyzed this for a month. We should make a decision. And he would sweat bullets, and for those of you, Bob, he really would sometimes have a hard time making a decision. But he could change his mind, and he would challenge how we think. And so this Bernard Shaw quote, progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. Okay, I want to just decide, can I change my mind? Do I believe that, yes, we need to think about this every day because it's our survival? Absolutely. We got to think about it every day. But do we spend enough time thinking about this? And how could we think about this? So I like to say it, I'll say it a few times. I think this is like becoming a consumer scientist. I want to be a consumer scientist. I want to understand what makes consumers choose our products more. And I broke it into these 5 things. There are 25 things or 100 things. But if I broke it into these 5 things, I just want to walk through them and just say, when it comes to food, taste matters, period. Convenience matters, period. And price matters. But I like to say it this way. Have you ever bought something food-wise that's really cheap and you go, man, I'm glad it didn't taste good because it was really cheap? No. In my view, food is mostly about taste and convenience, and price is absolutely important, but no one likes to pay a lower price for something they don't want. Food is something you want to have a good experience with. You want it to taste good. And so I always come down to taste and convenience are huge, but these 3 are the big ones. Then over here, I use trust and confidence. There's all host of things that we as producers and veterinarians, nutritionists, we get to do on this list of things. You can read them. They matter very much. They matter very much, but they're not more important than taste, convenience, and price, in my view. All right, let's talk about the pork loin. This is a picture of a grill, and on that grill we have the bung. I don't have to define that. Sometimes I have to define that to audiences. This group, you know what the bung is. The aorta, ears, and a boneless pork loin. The U.S. wholesale value, the value that's in the pork cutout, is what's shown in the red label. A pork loin is worth $1.60. Ears are worth $1.80. Aorta is $1.62, and the bung is worth $1.86. So in the pork cutout that all of you know, which of those products has the lowest value today in the United States for all of 2024? The boneless pork loin is worth less than the bung, less than the aorta, and less than the ears. How many of you are a little bit irritated by that? Show me your hand. Man, I'm very irritated about that. I don't think that's cool at all. And I'm keeping my calm right now to not swear. So Winston Churchill said it. Occasionally we stumble over the truth, but we try to hurry up and pretend it didn't happen. Consumers are screaming at us. The value of the pork loin is what? To them. It's low. Why? I believe we're caught in this supplier's dilemma. Every day, most of you wake up and say, I want to lower my feed conversion ratio, and you should. Because it lowers your what? Your cost. And what loop are we in? We're in this loop. And so we say, I got to lower my feed conversion, got to lower my costs. That does have some lowering of marbling. And pigs aren't cattle. So all my packer friends are going to be like, you're going down the path of grading, and I'm going to get in trouble with my packer friends. But here's the thing, marbling and taste are related. The average marbling in our pork today is 2%. Consumers can't taste anything below 3 to 4. So if you want to have a decent chance of having a decent pork loin, you need to have about 4% marbling. What's all of our industry have for marbling today? 2. And we know it. We absolutely know it. We're doing it every day. Why do we do it every day? Everybody, why? Almost in synchrony? Because we're stuck where? We're stuck here. We have to lower costs because it's survival. We then go to a restaurant, we say, God, that pork chop I had was what? Come on, people, was what? Dry or delicious? How many of you say dry? Come on. Yep, how many of you say delicious? It's delicious if the person who prepared it perfectly. It's very unforgiving if you don't have someone who prepared it perfectly. And so we've done this to ourselves. We took pig super lean to lower costs to compete with chicken on healthy and price. We've taken them so far that way that chicken is now worth more than pork on a breast versus chop. There's no fat left in the chop. Now, I'm not saying it's only about marbling. It's about a lot of things. Second thing, it's about convenience. God bless us. At the packing plant, one thing I've learned is throughput, right? We got to get things out of the building. The old sell it or smell it. So we put a boneless loin in a 7-pound package in a clear bag like this. We put it on the grocery store and say, I'm sure someone wants to eat that. How many of you buy that for your family routinely? Yeah, you're the aberration. You know why you buy it? I do, because it's what? Cheap! 100%, you guys. We're our own worst enemy. We say, well, that's great value. I don't know why everyone isn't buying that. And then people look at you and say, are you out of your mind? Who buys 7 pounds? That's not convenient. So here's what happens. We look at it and say, at the packing plant, we say, we lowered packaging costs. That's awesome. We measure that. We know that number. But then we get back down this loop and we say we have less demand for it because it's not very convenient, and we're back in this loop. Okay, then we go to the grocery store and we see boneless pork loin on sale for $1.99 a pound, and we get mad. And I say, yeah, but who wants to buy a 7-pound? It's not very convenient relative to chicken. What are the opportunities? Look, I can read all the words. The thing I'm trying to get at on the pork loin, it's about taste and convenience. And I think we need to penetrate food service profoundly more. I think we have to define what's good. What's good? Is 4% marbling what's good? Is 2%? We have to define that. We have to work on that as an industry to say what's good. And then we have to invest in it. And we're probably going to have to start thinking about time to pay producers for marbling. Maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't. But if we don't create an economic signal that connects the consumer's experience with the producer's experience, we're going to have the same repeat. Okay. Second issue is gene edit. It's a real issue today. I'm going to talk about our perspective on gene edit in terms of, again, I'm trying to give examples of how we may approach things differently. On the pork loin, maybe it's time to invest in a better eating experience, raise cost of production. On gene edit, entirely different, but really important. So here again, producers want gene edit, do consumers. I want to get my vet cap back on. I want the PRRS-resistant pig. I've had enough of this disease. But I only want that pig if we introduce it without harming demand. And I only want that pig if we can do so and increase consumer trust and confidence. Okay? So, how can gene edit pork increase consumer desire for pork? You know, if you ask yourself that question, it's a hard one. Consumers aren't originating this request. Producers are. Producers are originating this technology. Consumers are generally not aware of it. And so consumers don't wake up every day and say, you know, I'd really like some gene edit pork today. It's not on their radar. It's not going to be on their radar. We're originating on the supply side. And so what are the components? Back to this issue of components, there's sort of these options. It's not going to taste different. It's not going to be different on convenience. So we really are left with these three options in terms of increasing consumer desire. So let's talk about price. I've already made this point, but I'm going to try to make it again. The annual purse cost in the U.S., we talk about it being around $1.2 billion. That's what most of us talk about. I, Luke, am not always convinced it's that high. That says that every single pig in the United States has a $10 cost of PRRS. I have my doubts about that. But having said that, it is what it is. It's somewhere in this range. On a 215-pound carcass, 25.8 billion pounds, it's that same nickel. If we had 0 PRRS in the United States, we would eliminate $1.2 billion of cost. We would, in terms of value per pound of pork, it'd be about a nickel. And so to a consumer, it's that same $2.33 that I talked about. Raise your hand if you understand what I just said. Do you think consumers are actually going to buy more pork because it costs $2.33 less per year? I don't. The idea that we're going to lower costs with this technology and increase demand, highly unlikely. It's just another chapter in the producer's or supplier's dilemma. It's another way of doing the same thing we've been doing for many years. And then last, this assumes there's no cost for the technology. There will be some cost for the technology that will mean that we won't capture the full 1.2. Okay, so that if price isn't really going to move it for a consumer, I want to be clear, is that technology going to increase the competitiveness of producers? Yes or no? Absolutely yes. It's going to lower cost. But is it going to increase demand? In my opinion, absolutely no. Now we're down to trust and confidence. If we want to introduce the technology, how can we increase trust and confidence while we do it? At Wholestone Prestige, we did a gene edit survey of consumers. We did it with this group, RMG and Rep Data. We did it in June and July of 2025. We had 16 questions. We built the survey with professional expertise to be completely, as best we could, be unbiased. Which is to say, in the yellow, we didn't give a pre-survey commentary. I call it the survey wars. If I give a survey with a big preamble that's about how great something is and then give the survey, or I give a preamble about how terrible it is and then give the survey, likelihood is I'm going to get a survey that tells me what? Mostly what I shared in the preamble. We had no preamble. There were no words about gene edit good or bad in the survey. We just gave it out and said, take a survey for us, and we gave it to 1,000 people, and they were segmented, I think it's here, by gender, age, geography, race, education, internet use. There's 16 questions. I'm happy to share all of those, but today, for sake of time, I'm going to share half a dozen of them or so. So again, recent, 1,000 consumers. All those consumers ate pork, a plus or minus 3% error in results. Okay, so do you want to know if pork you purchase has been gene edited? Simple question. 74% said yes, 26% said no. This question is the closest to education we provided in the survey. Gene editing turns off part of the DNA that targets specific traits. In pigs, it makes them resistant to common disease. With this edit, the pork tastes the same, and the FDA has said the technology is safe. Knowing this to be true, how concerned would you be if the pork in your store was gene edited? Okay, that's the closest we came to educating them about gene edit, both, if you will, positively or negatively. We tried to be just as factual as we could be. So, 21% said I'm very concerned, 32% said somewhat, 25% not very, 11% not at all, and 11% not sure. So if I'm thinking about this on the consumer side of things, are half of them concerned? Yeah, half of them have a concern. Okay, next question. If a label on pork read, this pork comes from gene-edited pigs and is FDA approved, would you be likely to buy it, avoid it, or have more questions? Okay. 32%, I'd likely buy it. 25% I'd likely avoid it. 31% I'd have more questions, and 12% we're not sure. So when we talk about using this technology, do consumers desire it without any preamble? No. 25% say not only do I not desire it, I'd avoid it. And 31% are saying I have questions. So this is very concerning if you're looking at it and thinking about it on the demand side. Okay, so to put that in perspective, and I'm going to beat this to death, this is that same table. PERS cost is $1.2 billion. A 1 pound change, which is another way of saying if we lost 2% of our customers, which is 1 pound, it's worth $1.6 billion in retail market value. $1.6 billion in retail market value. PERS is $1.2 billion in cost. Now I'm using two different words because that's how we talk to each other. When you reduce PERS cost by $1.2 billion, do you increase profits? No. You reduce cost. When you reduce cost, you'll increase supply, and what will happen to profits? Probably. They're going to go what? Down. We'll lower cost, we'll increase supply, profit will go down. In a steady state, profit might stay the same $10 a head. But we're using cost because it will be cost out of the system. When we use this and say, okay, we as an industry lose 2% of our customers, or heaven forbid, we lose 25% of our customers like this survey just said, that's $20 billion. If you were the CEO of an industry and you sat down and looked at that chart, I would say you'd look at that chart and say, boy, I'm really going to have to be convinced that I'm not going to lose anything close to what this survey is saying before I want to adopt the technology, because it's just an economic equation, wins and losses. I could win $1.2 billion reduction in cost, but I could lose $20 billion in retail market value. This is the U.S. domestic side only. What about exports? Exports are 25 to 30% of our industry. And exports are complicated. There's a government approval that we need to get from Mexico and China and Japan, our big trade partners. But they also have consumers. And the consumers is another layer of this that's going to be complicated. Trade wars will happen. We see trade wars ongoing all the time. Mexico and GMO is still ongoing. Everybody knows this, right? There's still a debate about whether Mexico wants to accept genetically modified crops. It's a very familiar story to all of you. Paline. Paline became a trade barrier to China, and it was mentioned. The offal value of China is $5 to $8 a head. We lost that, or could have lost that, if we didn't take out Paline. We went ractopamine free in the U.S., even though everybody said it was what? It was safe. It's safe. We used it, and yet it became a trade barrier to $8 of opportunity for us, and we took it out. That gets to this point. How reversible is gene edit? There's a little thing in life called the risk reversibility matrix. Risk on this side, reversibility on this side. And when you don't have a easy to reverse issue, you better make sure it's low what? Low risk. This is a high risk and not easily reversed technology. Once you introduce gene edit into pork, to reverse it back out, what do we have to do to the animals? We have to kill them. They have to come out of the chain. That is a not very reversible. If we're in a trade war on this issue, it's very dangerous for producers. It's not an easily reversed decision. Okay, back to the survey. Do you want to know if the pork you purchase has been gene edited? Again, this is that 74% said yes. So then we asked them why. This question is, why do you want to know? And if there's bias in the survey, we did so without intent, but the bias of this question is we gave them these 6 choices. Definitely we would support more consumer research on this, but we gave them these 6 choices. So 65%, and they could choose all that were important to them. So if you're trying to add that up to 100, you're not going to get 100 because they could check more than one. But 65% said it's about whether it's safe. It's 57% whether it's healthy. Roughly 40%, hey, there's something going on in the ethics here, and changing pigs' DNA this way, I have a concern. And then just science overall, like this group of science people. And then, I don't know why. And this might be honest, right? I don't know why, it just seems important. You ask me, it must be important. So when we do consumer surveys, right, there's what people say and there's what people do. Absolutely true in this survey. But this is the survey at its simplest surface level. So how important is it for gene edit pork to be labeled clearly so buyers can see it? 63% said very 25% said somewhat, and basically no one thinks it shouldn't be labeled. So again, I'm asking consumers, we are asking consumers, should this thing be labeled? What are they saying? In a super majority, they're saying yes. A super majority, 88%. Who do you think should be responsible for creating and enforcing labeling rules for gene edit? Well, 69% of people said basically the government. After that, it drops off quickly. 12% is food companies. Well, that's Wholestone Prestige. That's us. This is in part why we did the survey. We have a responsibility to decide for our customers and our consumers, do they want to know and how should we tell them? So after that, it drops off really quickly. The FDA has approved gene edit pork as safe. How confident are you that it is safe for you and your family? So we just got done asking them, who should decide whether it should be labeled? And the FDA is what they said, more or less. They said the government, 69%. So how confident are you in the government? 21%, I'm very confident. 39%, I'm somewhat confident. This is a concern, though. Not very and not at all, over 30%. And we see this in our lives today. Who do you trust? Your TikTok follower group or the government? You're laughing because there's some truth in it. People don't know who to trust. And so when it comes to our industry and trying to move forward with safety, we have to, I think, we have to recognize that safety is not just about one entity or one group. This is a concern that this confidence in a safety label. All right, so the survey observations. 74%, a very large amount of consumers say, I want to know. 53 have some level of concern about it. 25% say I would avoid buying it. 88% want it labeled. 34% of consumers have low confidence in the government. There were 16 questions. I don't know, I shared half a dozen of them with you. That survey can be available to you in its totality. We didn't do this survey as a secret. We did this survey to try to understand what's at risk for our industry on this technology. If you want that survey, I'd be happy to share it with you. That gets me to this point. Gene edit adoption pathways. I think our industry has a choice. Our industry has a choice. Which path builds consumer trust and confidence, and which adoption approach is reversible? So, we've got regulatory approval, and I'm grateful for it. Now we have this option A with a label, option B without a label. If you're trying to increase trust and confidence in consumers, I think the choice is obvious. A label allows us to educate our consumers and our customers. It allows us to segregate the product if we have to reverse the decision. And it allows consumers to determine the market value. Rather than us saying, let's just put all the gene edit pigs in with all the other pigs, lower the cost of production, and not let consumers decide what it was worth to them. Raise your hand if you understood what I just said. A label allows choices. Choices consumers like. There's one thing I've learned, we all like choices as consumers. So, I am obviously biased, but I really have a lot of passion. It's actually why I agreed to speak. Thank you, Monsi, for the invitation. I think we're dangerously close to adopting this without a label, and I think there's a lot at risk. That's why I put up this yield sign. If we adopt it without a label, I really believe we're going to erode trust and confidence. I don't think we can even fully understand the consequences. And so the older I get, the more I realize, like, hey, adopt this technology slowly through consumers. Don't adopt it fast. I'm not here this morning saying don't adopt it. I'm saying let's adopt it slowly through consumers, not without a label. Because without a label, we're not getting consumer acceptance. We're not even asking consumers. We're basically telling consumers it's going to be there and you don't know or not. Okay, I've made these points. Focus for me, how to increase consumer desire for pork. I use the pork loin and I use gene edit. I think there are two issues that we face today that are real. There's these components, and you don't get to increase consumer desire thinking like a supplier. All right, I'm just about done. How do we collaborate? So back to Bob. Each time I saw Bob, literally each time I saw Bob, Bob would say, what are you learning about? What are you reading? Bob was a lifelong learner, and I think Al Leman was a lifelong learner before Bob. I never got to meet Al. But it's amazing when you get around those people that challenge you to learn how much more you learn and think. Bob was also a collaborator. Bob did Swine Health Monitoring Project 1.0. Mark, I see you sitting there. We remember that, don't we? 1.0. How much PRRS is out there, Paul? We remember that. Bob was a collaborator. I read this book, Change Your World. If you want to read it, read it. If you don't, don't. It's an interesting book. And what it kind of goes down to is this idea that we all have the chance to change our world. And I believe that. And it comes down to it, in this book, they say, let's work together because this has to be done. I am that passionate about demand today for our industry. I'm tired of losing to chicken and beef. I hope that you're tired. We won't win on demand by competing. We'll win by collaborating. And so this is like the pot calling the kettle black. If I reflect on my own skills in life, I like to compete. Many of you that know me would probably say, yeah, maybe too much. I enjoy a competition. I enjoy business competition. I have to learn to enjoy collaboration. The opportunity to change this one is about collaborating. Then we'll compete. How could we collaborate? I have about 5 or 6 things, and I'll be done. You know, I said it earlier, the consumer scientist. Pork board, pork checkoff dollars that every producer in this room funds in the United States are specifically built to promote our product. We all do it every day. There's no new decision required, but I think the focus of pork board being more and more on consumers is an opportunity to collaborate. And so I call it the National Pork Board Consumer Science Center. Imagine we could increase the amount of visibility to what, like the survey I just showed from Pork Board on Gene Edit. Surveys on what is good in a pork loin, what tastes good. I think we can do a lot more in consumer science. I'm going to come back to it. I really look at these 2 things. In business, the privilege I've had, you know, in the last 20 plus years of my life, teams love goals. Industries love goals. And industries and teams need scoreboards to show when we're winning together. I want to win on demand with you. I believe you want to win on demand with me. But we need a scoreboard, and we need to define what winning is. We need to say something like, we're going to increase the value of the pork loin by 10% in the next 5 years. Then we need to get in rooms like this and do it. Fresh pork quality monitoring. I shared with you marbling at 2%. Consumers' ability to detect it was what? 4. Why? What are we going to do about it? That's what I mean by pork quality monitoring. Fresh pork quality monitoring. We maybe don't need a grading system, or maybe the pig doesn't even allow for a grading system in its composition. But boy, we better figure out thresholds. I think we better figure out thresholds, and we need I think we could do a monitoring program. Marketing, taste what pork can do, I think is great. I think we're going down the path of making pork an ingredient and so many other things that are positive. And then I would just say, wouldn't it be great if we had a meeting, just like this one, where the only thing we talked about was the demand side? There was no conversation about reducing cost. How many of you can even imagine that meeting? Nobody raise your hand because you can't. An entire meeting of all of you bright, talented people thinking only about we're going to increase consumer desire for our products. That would be a way to collaborate differently than we have in my career. I don't want to make excuses for myself. I don't want to make excuses. I want to make change. Okay, we tend to, I've done this in my career. This is a list of the types of sciences. It's a busy thing. But we live down here in what this table organized. We live here in these applied scientists. We're the vets, we're the ag people, we're the engineers. We measure things, we set up p-values, and Bob taught me the p-values and all. And we are confident in our science. Science will answer the question. I actually support that. But you know what else I would say? There's other sciences. I don't know that we've really incorporated them enough. I just shared a consumer survey with you. By show of hands, how many of you have actually done a consumer survey? A few. In some future moment, that should be all of us. Through collaboration. I'm not suggesting you will do it yourself. I'm suggesting you will have been part of a process that surveyed consumers because it's a science. We're so proud of our improvements in efficiency, and we should be based on science, but I think we should be equally challenging to ourselves that we've missed the social sciences. We've missed the idea that how consumers behave and how consumers think is the real opportunity to raise what? Price. Lululemon. Okay, last slide, or second to last. I read this a long time ago, and it's I think it's true. If you start more sentences in your life with imagine, it's a pretty infectious thing. And you can apply it anywhere in your life. Imagine I weighed 20 pounds less. Imagine my golf handicap was a 0. Imagine my whatever, pick one, right? If you start more sentences with imagine in your life, it's kind of a positive way of thinking about life. Imagine if our industry could increase consumption and price by 10%. Imagine if we went to a restaurant and without telling them I was a pork producer, they actually chose the pork chop instead of the steak. Imagine it. Imagine that pork was the most trusted animal protein with U.S. consumers. I'm going to tell you a story. I took over as CEO at Wholestone Presses about 2.5 years ago. I was chairman prior to that, but I met with a large U.S. retailer, got to know him through 3 or 4 meetings, large U.S. retailer, heard the story of our farmers, the farmers I get to work for, and how they care for their animals and all the things that we do. And they literally said this, and this is a senior VP in charge of not just pork, protein for this U.S. retailer. They looked at me and said, you know, Luke, it's awesome to meet you. I wish I'd have met you 10 years ago because pork is the dirtiest protein on our shelf. Did you hear what I just said? The dirtiest protein on our shelf. And I was what? How many of you know me? I was very upset. But it's their honest feedback because the industry's gone through some tough issues. Sow housing's tough. Ractopamine's tough. And you can say chicken has too, and beef has too. But pork's gone through some real tough times in the last 20 years in terms of consumer and customer perception of our industry. I want us to be the most trusted. Today, I don't believe that we are. I want our farm margins to increase. All of you that raise pigs, you're working awfully hard. You're running fast on that treadmill, but you're making the same $10 you did 25 years ago. I'd sure like that to change. And a pork demand meeting, I've said. All right. This whole lecture for me was a privilege. I'll try not to get emotional. I loved Bob like a second dad. I did this lecture in honor of Bob. Hopefully, it made you think. That's all I want to do, is make you think about it. Share a little bit from where I stand today. I think the opportunity for us today is to collaborate on the demand side. That's all I have. Thanks, Monty.
Thank you, Luke. I hope you know that Bob would be very proud of you. I hope you know that.
Yeah.
I actually have a lot of questions, and I don't know which one to get started with. But you mentioned about moving forward in a collaborative environment. What would be the next step, really, to bring this group together, or whoever needs to be in the table, and make it happen?
So today I leave for California, the National Pork Board, and I'm not sure exactly, but the National Pork Board is having an innovation summit. And it starts tomorrow. Things like that, again, 2 or 3 things. One is people like me have to show up. And I'm guilty of not having done that enough in my career to those events. But the second thing I would urge this group to do is if you leave here and actually think to yourself, what have you actually done and thought about to increase consumer desire on pork products? Talk with each other about it in the hallway. Create a working group. Be in a discussion group with your colleagues. Actually try to come up with something. We're in the packing business. I promise I'll take your phone call. I'll take your phone call. I promise I'll attend your meetings. We have to start talking about it. We think it's someone else's job. No one's going to do this for us. These people in this room are going to do it. It's not going to get done by anyone else. And it's honestly as simple as get started.
Actually, I have a lot of questions, but on the benefit of time, we'll leave it here. Look, I really want to give you this in recognition of your lecture today for doing work that matters to the swine industry, and this is in honor of Bob.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.